Hi, everybody. It's Beth Hilton here, and today I'm inviting Keith Richie to have a creative conversation with me today about his music. He's a composer and producer. He works in various genres. We'll get into that. And he's joining us today from Mesquite, Texas.
Mesquite, Texas. Hi, Beth. How are you?
I'm good, Keith. Welcome. It's so good to finally have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to be
Yeah,
here.
that is a really cool studio.
Thank you. This is my Zen zone. It used to be only my studio, but now it's kind of my work, play, work. So kind of all around. But
It's really nice, and I noticed that you have a very, fun shirt on there.
well, yes, this is my COVID shirt.
No close
No close
encounters of
encounters of
any
any
kind.
of any kind.
That's great. So all of that, I think, points perfectly to the music, and the mindset that you're about with your love of science fiction
Mhm.
and with your, music that goes into ambient, into drone, into chill out, and even into rock, which is your
Right,
earlier inspiration. Didn't we all
right,
start there, right?
right. Yeah, that's a great point to kind of bring up is my love of music soundtrack type material and science fiction all began with one of my larger idols, John Williams. You know, when I
Mm.
was when I was young, my father would always take us to the movies, and that really gave me a love for soundtrack type music because it was Close Encounters, Star Wars,
Yeah,
and
that
Keith Richie, Keith
absolutely
Richie.
sweeping feeling, right? That just lifts you off your seat and makes you wanna fly as a kid, for
And he would
sure.
always buy the soundtracks, and I'd come over and I'd put that needle, on the record and play it, and I just had this appreciation for that orchestral sound. So you find a lot of that in my music, and
Mhm.
just trying to find its way into that listening experience. So
So even as a child, you would buy soundtracks?
yeah, definitely. I a lot of so as a child, I'd be listening to a John Williams score or Ennio score or famous composers. I mean, I can't too many to list off the top of my head right this minute. And then the next day, I'd be listening to something like Motley Crue or
Mhm.
Accept or Van Halen, or Depeche Mode. I mean, it was a wide range. The only thing I didn't really listen a lot to was or I would buy would be maybe country music and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. But a lot of major musical influences in that
Yeah.
wide spectrum. So
That's so interesting. So that was all there at an early age.
mhm,
Um, Now I wanted to mention that you have this new album,
right.
Ambient Highways, coming
Yes,
out,
ma'am.
and in that, I definitely get that cinematic sense with the first single, "V Feeling,"
Hmm.
and, I think that, you can tell us about, the inspiration for that and how that connects back to that time.
Definitely. So another one of my big influences is Vangelis, and I was first introduced to him like probably a lot of people. Uh, with me, it was Cosmos, uh, Carl
Mhm.
Sagan,
Right.
Cosmos, and Blade Runner. And one day I was sitting trying to kind of match that classic sound that he got from the CS80, the Yamaha CS80. Obviously, I didn't have one.
Yeah.
And, trying to reproduce that sound and just sitting around and experimenting, da 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 da, and finally came across something that had that Vangelis feeling to it. And wrote a song, and at the end of it, I'm like, what am I going to call this? Well, it has that Vangelis feeling to it, so titled it V Feeling. I didn't want to
Mhm.
include Vangelis in the name, that
Right.
might be a little pompous, right? But
Right.
so it's sort of my homage to Vangelis and the great music that he's created without imitating him,
Yeah.
So and a lot of people love that song, um, and I guess they can sense that in
Mm.
it. and it brings back a lot of people kind of, I think, compare it to maybe Memories of Green from the Blade Runner soundtrack. It has that feeling in it,
Right. Okay.
and that's what I visualize, I guess, a lot in it. So,
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I would say that this album, from what I've heard and I've listened to it a few times now, um, to me, it really represents a pretty good range of your ambient styles, even though they're all, can be categorized as ambient. There's a nice bit of range in the album. It's not as if it's very, even and just sort of the, background music
mm,
sense of ambient. It's really
right.
more lush and melodic in a lot of places. The second single's Neptune's Awakening, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And, in that we hear the feeling of the roar of the surf and, evoking Neptune and almost an impending sense of he's coming, like
Right.
he's going to emerge and it might be a little bit scary. Like I felt that.
It
What would
definitely
you
has
think of
more of
that?
a dramatic feeling to it, a more
Yeah.
cinematic type of, I guess you could call it maybe like the intro to
Yeah.
the score. I mean, one of my dreams has always been, and I don't even want to call it a dream because it's going to happen. I'll,
Mhm.
I'll put it that way, right? Ultimately, I will be,
Yeah.
ultimately is I want to do film and television work. I've actually done a short film.
I was gonna
Um,
say, I saw that you did something was that,
yeah.
in one of your favorite realms of horror?
Horror films, yeah, yeah. Did a short film called Dead Love. Um, it's making the short film festival right now, but ultimately, film and TV scoring.
Mhm.
My fascination with soundtrack work. So,
Yeah.
but Ambient Highways does have this orchestral soundtrack esque, you know, composition to it.
Mhm.
So, kind of like what you were saying is, it has some ambient elements to it, and even though the title to it is Ambient Highways, it has more of a more melodic, more structure to it than you might find in a classical ambient
Okay.
album. So, and it
Right.
gets its name from the title track, Ambient
Mhm.
Highways.
Mhm. So, I always like to ask people about their creativity, and,
Hmm.
certainly you've done this album, you have, a bigger discography, and, you are living in Texas, you have a full life, you have, all kinds of things that you do. How do you stop and tap into your creativity, and what keeps you, filling up that, bucket of creativity to feed the music?
Yeah. Wow. Um, it depends. So normally, um, my creative sweet spot is about 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I I normally wake up about 3:30 a.m., have some coffee, and usually that's because I'm more awake at that time, I guess, surprisingly, and I've had time to rest, and I'll usually come in and dabble,
Mhm.
and I'll sit down, and I may have a melody in my head, or I've had time to think, and I'll sit down and I'll jot down a melody, and then it'll sit, sometimes for a week, sometimes for a month, sometimes for years.
Oh, wow.
And I might pick it up a month later, and work on it more. And then sometimes I'll work on something, and 2 hours later I've got to finish song, right?
That's
And it just depends,
amazing,
right?
yeah, how the
It
muse
just
work.
depends. I In fact, just the other day I was looking at just how many project files I had working on, and I've got like 540. It's now this is over a 20-year span, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Things that have carried through, and some of these things I'm reworking on, and stuff like that.
I guess
But
you can name them very carefully so that, you know
yeah, some of them have names. Some of them are like 2010, 04, 30, or
Hmm,
29, right? Which was
yeah,
April the 29th of 2010.
right, right.
A. the first song I worked on that day, right? And it's just a melody, or it's something that I was working on, and I got to it, and I went, "This ain't right,"
Mhm.
and I put it down, right?
But I love
But
that you do that because you're honoring every idea and every melody
yeah,
that comes to you, no matter where we think it comes from, if it comes from source or universe or just personal creativity,
mhm,
talent, skill sets, just recording it, getting it
yes,
down in some form or another to give it its own life. I think
yeah,
that's fantastic, and it also speaks to, I think, an artist who has to get to the point where they'll honor that in
mhm.
themselves and their ability to do that.
and I made a note to in a interview here recently. I used to do a lot of reading, and I'm trying to get back into that too. And I've made the statement, I hear this music as I'm reading, and if I could just,
Ah,
for if I could just write down every note for everything that I'm reading, or whatever I said, something like that. It sounded more beautiful in my head,
yeah,
when I was saying it the other day, right? But I could write down every note to every page that I read, or something like that, because it's I can't express
yeah.
that all the time.
That's a wonderful idea. I mean, you could actually record yourself reading some bits and then orchestrate it.
Let me try that real quick. Friday, be sure to put the check in the mail.
Well, I like that version rather than just the straight up reality. I gotta
Yeah,
get a check in
true.
the mail.
Friday, gotta put the check in the mail. But yeah, that's true though. Uh,
So that kind of makes life nice to have that going through your head.
yeah.
So, tell me about your creative collaborations. I know that you've said in other interviews, that you love to collaborate, and there are people that mean a lot in your world that
Yeah.
give you more fuel for creativity. So, I'd love to hear a bit about those folks and the projects they're connected to.
Sure. So Ambient Highways obviously is the most important thing I've got going on right now. And before I forget, I'd love to tell people to be sure to hit my website at music.krichie.com. No T. You can go there to find out more information about Ambient Highways for sure. Uh, it's being released on vinyl too, a multicolored limited edition vinyl, by the way. And there's merchandise. Let's
Oh,
not forget
very
about that. Look
nice.
at
So
that.
it's music.krichie.com.
That's correct, and that'll take you to places where you can go shop. Um, but definitely because of those influences, right? The soundtrack work, the electronic music work, Kraftwerk, Tangerine Dream, Anya, Deep Force, all of those things, and then the metal and Depeche Mode and all of that. So those wide ranges and influences, I like to create those types of music too,
Mhm.
not just kind of be locked into one certain style. So I
Oh,
have various different collaboration projects that I'm involved in. One of them is with a good friend of mine, Jeff Vorosky, and we have a side project called VR, which is more kind of classical ambient music or drone type music that we do.
mm,
So we've got some music that we've put together for that, and you'll hear more about that in the future. Another chill out type project that's more electronic soft rock, so more away from not away from, but a little more up tempo
okay.
than what you might hear on Ambient Highways. That's with a friend of mine named Ray Clay. We actually went to high school together. We were in high school band,
Mm,
and he's my guitarist. And then he and I have another side project that's just different enough. Then we want to market differently from
mm.
all of these things, called Binary Waste, and that's got this industrial sound to it. So
Oh,
if you were to listen to somebody, let's say like one of my favorite bands, the Birthday Massacre, right, which is this grungy industrial rock sound. So that's something that we love and want to do more of. There's
I have to
actually some.
say, let me just
Uh,
jump in and say binary waste
mhm.
is like one of the most amazing group names I've ever heard. That's
Thank you.
that's very Very cool. And it fits,
It's
obviously fits the music.
well, my background, I'm a software developer, uh,
Uh-huh.
in the background, right? So I have this history with software development and technology and computers. So we were trying to figure out what are we going to call this thing, right? So
Right.
it's got this deep technical background to it,
Yeah.
and so a lot of the song titles are related to that. So you'll hear more
Fantastic.
information as time progresses on that as well.
Yeah.
So it
And
gives me a way to express all those different styles
yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a great spread of
and lest me not forget, so
yes.
sorry. Um, Corey Carruthers, which I believe you know,
Yes, I love Corey.
great pianist friend of mine. Just recently finished a collaboration with her. She's got a single coming out, I believe, on the 31st of this month,
Oh,
March,
great.
called Remember. And she asked me to, we talked about collaborating here 3 years ago, and we finally were able to connect and finish that up, and that'll be releasing really soon. So,
Wow, that's been a long time coming, and it sounds like now's the right time for it with that title, you know?
yeah, so
Perfect.
lots of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I really like, visiting with her sometimes on her live feeds that she does, and I know that you also do that, like, every Monday at 5, right? You
Yes,
go
ma'am.
live on YouTube?
Yes, on
Any other
YouTube.
platforms?
It's on YouTube at youtube.com/C/Keith Richie.
Mhm.
I also stream simultaneously to Twitch, and that's twitch.tv/music. Wait, excuse me. I'll get it right
It's
here.
okay, we can put them in the chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maestoso Prime, because Maestoso was taken.
Oh,
I can talk
yeah.
about I can talk about Maestoso in just a
Yes,
minute.
let's talk about that.
And
That's a
then
great name too. You're very good at this.
on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Maestoso Music. So
Maestoso Music, M-A-E-S.
and I stream to all of those channels at time. And so at 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time every Monday for about an hour, I do Monday musings with Maestoso. And the reason why I named it that way is for all these different genres and
Mhm.
different styles. I can talk about all of them.
Right.
And I have guest hosts come on. Sometimes it's musicians, sometimes it's just people who love music. And if it's a guest artist, sometimes we'll share their music. But we talk about music, we talk about the industry, and it's a lot of fun. We talk
It's a
about
nice way to connect after a weekend, kinda get
definitely.
grounded with your friends and visit and
And if you're over on the other side of the pond, you'll generally catch me sometimes early in the mornings as I'm composing. I'll do a morning coffee talk and music where
Mhm.
I'll just start streaming and as I'm enjoying my coffee and noodling around. So
Yeah,
that's very random. There's no set time, but
yeah. Did you just start these, while we've been in this, pandemic time?
no, I was doing them fairly regularly in 2019. During the pandemic, I kind of backed off. There were quite a few, not just because of the pandemic. There were quite a
Right.
few things going on that I had to put that on pause, and so I
Mhm.
went on a little hiatus with that for 2020. But
Right.
picking that back up now.
So that's interesting. You were already community building, that
Yes,
long ago, and so that continues to build. I think
yes,
it's
ma'am.
really nice. It's, again, it's not a big performance. There's not a huge agenda. It's just this kind of come and hang out, we'll just kind of see what unfolds.
Yeah, I'm gonna build a little more structure to it as time goes on, right? Because
Mhm.
there's a need for that. But
Mhm.
generally, it's come hang out, let's talk. An hour gets filled up pretty quick. I'm
Yeah.
obviously a good babbler, talker. We can, and when my friend the SharePoint cowboy Eric Shups comes on, we fill it up pretty quick. So
Yeah, exactly. Now I wanted to just ask you, who else, is important, in this life and in this process for you? Because I know that sometimes it takes a village to put
mhm.
out even one album. let
Yeah.
alone all these different things that you do.
Well, without a doubt, that would be my wife, Kayla. She is absolutely the person that kind of helps me stay focused
Mm,
and grounded. And uh, she's the director
yeah.
behind this chaos that I create, I guess if you could say it. She's my bouncing board. I could come up with 1,001 different positive things, or titles for her. But if I get stuck on something, I'm working on something and I'm like, this is going nowhere. I don't know where to take it. I'll have her come in
Mhm.
and listen to it, and she'll listen and she'll go like, that part right there, you need to just throw it away. you know, or she'll come in and she's like, I really like this part. I'm going,
Yeah,
really? Because I'm hating it. She's like, no, I like it. You just need to add these three
right.
notes right here. And suddenly it's something completely different, right? But probably one of the most amazing things that she's ever done, and I can never stop talking about this, was she is the reason why Ambient Highways is what it is.
Oh.
And if I have enough time, I'll try to get through this really quickly. But when I started working on what became Ambient Highways, there was an old song that I had. It was just simply called Ambient Highway,
Mhm.
without the S. And I was working on it, and I was sharing it with a few friends, getting feedback. And she was helping me come up with like little simple art pieces to
Mhm.
go on SoundCloud that I was sharing private links to. And she's like, "What is this one called?" I'm like, "It's called Ambient Highway." And she put together, she found this image of this highway system in Shanghai. She found this nebula, and she patched together this image,
Oh.
and she put it together, and it was just beautiful. And I went, oh my goodness, that's perfect. I said, we should just call the whole album that. But instead of a ambient highway, I'm going to call it Ambient Highways.
Mhm.
And it set the tone and it set the focus for the entire album. So if you haven't seen the
Mhm.
album cover, there you go. All right.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we
Every
took
song takes you somewhere different. Ambient
yeah.
Highways. I
So
love
we
it.
took we took that concept, refined it, and she's pretty much been a part of everything since then. She
Mhm.
helps me piece things together. She's the true visionary, you know,
Mm. Oh, those
for
are big
for
huge props. Well,
for
you sound
everything
like
moving forward.
you're sorry, you sound like you're very blessed
I
to
am,
have her on your team.
absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, that's nice to hear, Keith. I know that it can be lonely out there as a composer, and
Mm,
especially at the time that we're in. So I'm glad you have, a muse in essence and a director at your disposal. It's great.
yeah, thank you.
Well, Ambient Highways, I'll just give a little, if I may, just a quick read of one of the review descriptions that I've received.
Thank you.
Um, we will hear electronic instrumental science fiction cinematic soundscapes from other worlds, full of heroic processions, melodic and consistently moderate in tempo, mostly quiet with moments of strength, and brimming with imaginative and futuristic concepts such as advanced science and technology, space exploration, time travel, parallel universes, and extraterrestrial life. Keith Richie is a guy who has always loved science fiction, and now he gets to make things happen. He who controls the music controls the universe. I love that.
They definitely saw my Dune references all over the place.
Okay. Yeah, I did not write it, but I did
Yeah,
enjoy it very
yeah,
much. So I wanted to share
yeah.
that
Thank
and let
you.
people know that the vinyl is on a pre-sale, right, as a
That's
special
correct.
limited edition,
Right.
and then the entire album is available in all formats as well on April 12th, right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, and, you can link to that through music.kritchie.com, and we'll link that down in the bio, and I'll put all your links down there in the
Thank you. Yeah,
comments section, so,
absolutely. Thank you.
yeah. And visit Keith on Mondays at 5 over on YouTube and
That's
hit
right.
your notifications, get your reminders, and have a friend to visit with.
Sounds great. Thank
Mm.
you, Beth. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Keith. I'm so glad you joined me today. I appreciate it.
Exciting.
Good luck with the album.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.